twilight seeped through the high mullioned windows of Mallory Manor, casting long, sombre shadows across the worn stone floor. Sir Edmund Mallory sat heavily in his chair, the weight of the day's counsels and whispered threats pressing down on his shoulders like a physical burden. His eyes, sharp yet weary, traced the curling smoke from the guttering candle on the wooden table. Across from him, Lady Eleanor stood poised, her silhouette framed by the dim light. Her resolute eyes met his with quiet strength, a balm to his restless mind. "You are not alone in this," she said softly, stepping closer. "Whatever storms break, we face them together. Our family, our future, they depend on it." Edmund's jaw clenched as he absorbed her words. The fractures within their hold on power had deepened since he pledged fealty to York. The shifting tides of allegiance left him isolated, vulnerable to both the ambitions of Lord Richard Devereux and the simmering animosity of Sir Thomas Grey. The once clear lines of loyalty had blurred into a treacherous labyrinth. At the council meeting earlier that day, Edmund had felt the cold sting of suspicion from Yorkist sympathisers, who eyed him as little more than a turncoat. Their veiled threats and careful words were daggers in silk, and Edmund knew the precariousness of his position. Each decision, each alliance, risked setting aflame the fragile peace he struggled to maintain. "We must be cautious," Eleanor advised, her voice steady despite the tension thickening the air. "The enemy watches for any sign of weakness." Their conversations often circled back to trust, a scarce commodity in these times. Edmund found solace in Eleanor's unyielding presence, a beacon in a landscape marred by betrayal and bloodshed. Yet even in the quiet moments by the hearth, as the firelight danced across their faces, the future remained uncertain. The flickering shadows seemed to echo the fragility of their hold on power, the constant threat lurking just beyond the walls of their home. Outside, the patrolling figures of Sir Thomas Grey's men cast long, menacing silhouettes against the dusk. Their presence was a relentless reminder that survival demanded not only courage, but shrewd calculation. Grey's vendetta was no mere rivalry. It was a symbol of the broader conflict tearing the realm apart, a personal threat that gnawed at Edmund's resolve. As night deepened, Edmund wrestled with the choices he had made and those yet to come. Loyalty had become both a weapon and a cage, an ambition a perilous path fraught with loss. Yet amidst the fractured loyalties and encroaching dangers, a flicker of determination burned within him, a vow to protect what remained of his family's legacy, no matter the cost. The howl of distant war horns echoed faintly, a chilling herald of battles yet to come. Edmund rose, his gaze steeling as he prepared to meet the darkness head-on. In the fragile balance of power, every moment was a gamble, every alliance a thread that could unravel the tapestry of his life. But in Lady Eleanor's unwavering eyes, he found the strength to face the gathering storm. As the manor settled into uneasy silence, Edmund's thoughts turned to the uncertain dawn. The road ahead was shadowed and perilous, and the fractures within his world threatened to widen into a chasm. Yet from the ashes of broken loyalties and shattered trust, he would forge a path, one that might yet preserve honor or condemn him to ruin. And so, beneath a sky heavy with stars, yet cloaked in darkness, Sir Edmund Mallory steeled himself for the trials ahead, knowing that the fragile nature of power could break at any moment, and that survival would demand sacrifices far deeper than he had ever imagined. The night deepened, but the war within and without raged on, unyielding and merciless, like the land itself. The question lingered, could Edmund hold fast, or would the fractures consume everything he fought to protect? The answer awaited with the coming dawn. The chapel was silent, save for the soft rustle of Brother Matthew's robe as he moved to light a solitary candle upon the ancient stone altar. The flame flickered, casting wavering shadows that danced upon the cold walls, a fragile beacon of warmth in the gloom. Outside, the relentless pall of war hung heavy over the land, but within these hallowed walls, time seemed to slow, offering a rare moment of stillness. Sir Edmund Mallory entered quietly, his steps muffled against the worn flagstones, his face, weathered by battle and burdened by choices too grave for his years, was a mask of thoughtful weariness. He paused near the entrance, eyes falling upon the frail figure of Brother Matthew kneeling before the altar, lost in prayer. The monk's presence was a constant amid the shifting chaos, a silent watcher of souls. Brother Edmund murmured, stepping forward, "Your prayers are needed more than ever." Matthew rose slowly, the lines upon his face deepening as he regarded Edmund with soft, weary eyes. "The Lord hears all prayers, Edmund, though his answers may be veiled in shadow. Tell me what weighs upon your heart." The knight hesitated, fingers tightening around the leather strap of his sword belt. "I am torn. The path I walk grows darker with each step. To survive, I must forsake the honor I once held sacred. Yet, in doing so, I fear I lose the very soul I fight to protect." A faint sigh escaped the monk. War is no stranger to the testing of faith. It strips men to their core, revealing truth and folly alike. But remember, even in the darkest night, a single star may guide your way. Edmund nodded, though the words offered little comfort. He found a seat upon a wooden bench near the rear of the chapel and sank heavily, the weight of his decisions pressing upon him. Lady Eleanor's footsteps echoed softly in the corridor before she entered, her presence a balm to Edmund's troubled spirit. Her eyes, resolute and bright despite the shadows that gathered around their house, met his with quiet understanding. "The world beyond these walls grows ever more cruel," she said gently, moving to sit beside him. "But within, we must find strength, not only for ourselves, but for those who cannot fight." He reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining in a gesture of shared resolve. "I fear the road ahead will demand more than I can give." She squeezed his hand firmly. "Then let us walk it together." Brother Matthew's voice softened as he resumed speaking, his words weaving a tapestry of solemn reflection. "The scriptures speak of trials that test the spirit, not to break it, but to forge it anew. Yet, the cost of such forging is often unseen, the erosion of innocence, the quiet despair that lingers in the heart's recesses." Edmund's gaze fell to the floor, the flickering candlelight mirrored in his eyes. "How does one bear such a burden?" "By remembering that no man carries it alone," the monk replied. "Faith is not the absence of doubt, but the courage to seek light despite it." As the hours wore on, their conversation turned to the lives lost, the betrayals endured, and the hope that still flickered faintly amid ruin. Edmund confessed his fears of becoming a man unrecognizable to those he loved, a man shaped more by ambition and survival than by chivalry and honor. Brother Matthew listened, offering no easy answers, only the steady presence of a witness to the soul's battle. The war outside is echoed within. To navigate it, you must first understand the war within yourself. Outside, dawn crept slowly over the horizon, pale light filtering through narrow windows and casting a silver sheen upon the cold stone. Lady Eleanor rose, moving to stand by the window, her silhouette etched against the breaking day. She watched as the mist clung to the scarred earth, a stark reminder of the war's relentless grasp. "There is still a future beyond these ashes," she whispered, more to herself than to those present. "We must believe in it." Edmund joined her, their shoulders touching briefly. A silent vow passed between them. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with peril and moral compromise. But in this quiet moment, they found a flicker of hope. The morning prayers concluded. Brother Matthew's final words hung heavy in the air. The soul's journey is long and often lonely, but it is not without grace. Walk it with courage, Edmund Mallory, and may you find peace amidst the storm. As the chapel doors creaked open, letting in the cool morning air, Edmund felt the weight of his choices anew. The silent watcher had spoken, and though the answers were not clear, the questions remained questions that would shape the very marrow of his being in the days to come. Outside, the war raged on, but within these walls, a fragile sanctuary endured a testament to the enduring human spirit even amidst the darkest of times. And yet, as Edmund stepped into the uncertain light of dawn, the shadows of doubt clung tightly, whispering that the cost of survival was far from paid, and the true battle was only just beginning. The dawn was a pale promise, casting a fragile light over the charred remains of the village where Sir Edmund Mallory stood alongside Lady Eleanor. The air was thick with the acrid scent of smoke mingled with the damp earth, a stark reminder of the relentless destruction that the Wars of the Roses had wrought upon the land. Edmund's eyes, though weary and shadowed by sleepless nights, searched the horizon with a flicker of determination. Here, in the ashes of loss, he sought the faintest glimmer of hope. Lady Eleanor's hand found his a gesture of steadfast support amid the ruin. Her resolute eyes met his briefly, conveying a shared burden heavier than words. "We cannot let this be the end," she said softly, her voice steady despite the tremor of grief beneath. "For our children, for the future of Mallory, we must find a way to rise again." Edmund nodded, the weight of her conviction anchoring his resolve. The war had stripped away many illusions. The romantic idealism of chivalry was now replaced by the harsh calculus of survival. Yet within that cold reckoning, a spark remained, an ember of human resilience, refusing to be extinguished. As they turned from the devastation, the sounds of the camp stirred nearby. Brother Matthew was already tending to the wounded, his presence a balm amid the chaos. In the flickering candlelight of the makeshift infirmary, the monk whispered prayers over broken bodies, his voice a steady cadence that spoke of faith unbowed by carnage. Edmund approached, watching Brother Matthew's gentle ministrations. The monk's eyes, deep and somber, met his with understanding. "There is more at stake than flesh and blood," Matthew murmured. "Our souls are tested in these dark times, yet even in shadow, the light of hope endures." The words struck a chord within Edmund's conflicted heart. The spiritual cost of the war was a weight he bore silently, wrestling with doubts and fears that gnawed at his conscience. It was in moments like these that he found brief sanctuary, a glimpse of the man he once aspired to be. Meanwhile, Captain Robert Hale awaited him beneath the gnarled branches of ancient oaks, the early morning mist weaving through the leaves like ghostly threads. Hale's expression was grave, his posture taut with the urgency of their predicament. "We cannot continue as we are," Hale said, his voice low but firm. "Our forces are depleted, morale fraying. But I have heard whispers of discontent among the Yorkists. There may be a chance to turn the tide if we are willing to take it." Edmund considered the proposition carefully. To align with former enemies was a perilous gamble, one that risked betrayal and ruin. Yet the alternative was a slow death in the shadows of defeat. "Tell me everything," Edmund urged, his strategic mind already weighing the possibilities. Their plans unfolded in hushed tones, a delicate dance of trust and caution. Hale's knowledge of the enemy's fractured loyalties presented a slender opening, a fissure through which hope might seep. Days later, under the cloak of twilight, Edmund ventured to a secret meeting in a shadowed grove far from prying eyes. The air was thick with the scent of damp leaves and earth, the silence punctuated only by the distant call of a night bird. Here he met a Yorkist emissary, a man whose sharp eyes mirrored his own wariness. Their exchange was terse, laden with the weight of history and suspicion. Yet beneath the barbs and guarded words lay a mutual understanding. Survival demanded alliances that transcended old enmities. "We both bleed under the banner of ambition," the emissary said quietly. "Perhaps it is time to forge a new path, one where our houses might find common ground." Edmund's heart quickened at the possibility, the fragile trust forming a lifeline in a sea of uncertainty. He knew the road ahead would be treacherous, fraught with peril and betrayal. But for the first time in many moons, there was a flicker of hope, chance to reclaim not only his family's future, but the very soul of a fractured land. Returning to camp, Edmund shared the news with Lady Eleanor and Brother Matthew, their faces reflecting the cautious optimism that now tempered their despair. The war was far from over, and the cost of this new alliance remained unknown. Yet within the crucible of conflict, human resilience had kindled a light that might yet endure. As the night deepened, Edmund stood watch beneath a canopy of stars, each one a distant beacon in the vast darkness. The path ahead was uncertain, but in that moment he embraced the fragile hope that had taken root within his weary heart. For in a world fractured by ambition and bloodshed, it was hope that would carry him forward. And so, amidst the ashes of loss and the shadows of doubt, Sir Edmund Mallory took the first step toward a future uncharted his fate, intertwined with the flickering light of a fragile alliance, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. What lay beyond this fragile dawn was unknown. But Edmund was resolved, come what may, he would not surrender to despair, not yet. The war raged on, but so too did the flicker of hope. The air was thick with the acrid stench of smoke and blood as dawn crept over the embattled plain. Sir Edmund Mallory stood atop a low rise, his armour battered and smeared with grime, his breath ragged but steady. Around him, the remnants of his small force gathered, faces streaked with dirt and exhaustion, eyes wide with the grim determination that comes only in the face of death. The horizon was a jagged line of smoke and shadow, where the forces of House York surged forward like a relentless tide. The clash of steel, the roar of war cries, and the sharp crack of arrows filled the morning air, a brutal symphony to which Edmund's heart beat in time. "Hold the line," Edmund called out, voice hoarse but commanding. His men tightened their grip on their weapons, rallying to the standard despite the fear gnawing at their souls. Captain Robert Hale, stalwart and unyielding, positioned the archers with precision, his eyes scanning the advancing enemy for weak points. "Steady now, let them come to us." The ground trembled beneath the pounding hooves of Yorkist cavalry, led by the ominous figure of Sir Thomas Grey. The rival knight's scarred visage was unmistakable, his cold eyes locking with Edmund's in a moment that seemed to freeze time itself. There was no love lost between the two, only a bitter history etched in blood and broken oaths. Yet beneath the hatred lay a grudging respect, forged in the crucible of countless battles and personal duels. As the Yorkist forces charged, Edmund's sword rose in defiance. Steel met steel with a ringing clang that echoed across the field. The battle was a maelstrom of violence, banners torn, shields shattered, cries of pain and rage intermingling. Edmund fought not just for victory, but for survival, for the fragile hope of a future beyond this hellscape. In the command tent, Lady Eleanor Mallory moved with quiet grace, her hands deftly tending to the wounded who had been brought from the front lines. Her eyes, sharp and resolute, betrayed the heavy burden she bore. She had counseled Edmund since the war began, her political acumen and compassion a beacon in the encroaching darkness. "We must hold," she insisted softly to the men around her, "for if we fall here, all is lost." The battle raged without mercy, each side taking and giving pain in equal measure. Edmund's strategic mind worked feverishly, anticipating Grey's maneuvers and countering with calculated precision. His leadership was the fulcrum on which the fate of those present balanced precariously. Hours passed, like moments, the sun rising high to scorch the battered earth. The toll was evident. Fallen comrades strewn in the mud, the once vibrant colours of their livery dulled by grime and blood. Yet still, Edmund's men held still, hope flickered amid the ruin. As dusk approached, the clamour of battle waned, replaced by the eerie silence that follows carnage. Edmund stood alone atop the ridge, the weight of the day pressing down upon his shoulders. The horizon glowed faintly, a smouldering testament to the devastation wrought. His heart ached for the lives lost, for the innocence shattered by ambition's cruel hand. But within that sorrow burned a stubborn flame, a resolve to endure, to rebuild from the ashes. The last stand had not been in vain. Though battered and broken, Edmund Mallory remained a symbol of resilience amid the chaos. And as the stars began to pierce the velvet night, a question lingered in the cold air. What price would survival demand next? The morning light was a pale, reluctant thing as it seeped through the cracked shutters of the great hall, casting long shadows over the weathered wooden floorboards. Sir Edmund Mallory stood silent, his gaunt figure silhouetted against the weak dawn, eyes fixed on the distant horizon where the smouldering remnants of battle still whispered their mournful tales. Around him lay the heavy silence of loss, the air thick with the bitter temps of smoke and blood, and the faint echo of voices now stilled by death. It had been a cruel reckoning. The battle had left its mark not only on the land, but etched deep into Edmund's very soul. Where once his heart had swelled with the noble ideals of loyalty and honour, now hardened pragmatism took root, nourished by betrayal and survival's ruthless demands. The faces of comrades lost flickered in his memory, brave men felled by the merciless tide of war, their sacrifices a heavy toll he bore, like an unseen chain about his neck. His hands, once steady and assured in the tilt of a sword, trembled slightly as he adjusted the worn leather straps of his gauntlets. The weight of leadership pressed upon him more heavily than any armour, bearing down with the unyielding force of consequence. Behind him, the heavy oaken door creaked open, and Lady Eleanor entered quietly, her footsteps soft but purposeful, her eyes sharp and unwavering despite the fatigue that shadowed them, met Edmund's with a mixture of empathy and steel. She moved to his side, her presence a balm to the chafing wounds of grief and doubt. "The survivors gather," she said softly, voice steady but edged with sorrow. "They look to you, Edmund. They need you now more than ever." He nodded, swallowing the tightness in his throat. The war had changed everything. The ideals they once held dear had been ground beneath the wheels of ambition and betrayal. Yet in this crucible of fire and loss, a new resolve was forged. Survival demanded not purity of heart, but clarity of purpose. Later that day, in the quiet sanctuary of the family chapel, Brother Matthew knelt in prayer. His voice was a gentle murmur, a litany of supplication for the souls lost and the living burdened by guilt. Edmund joined him, the weight of his sins pressing down as heavily as the stone vaults overhead. The spiritual cost of their strife was laid bare in the flickering candlelight, a reminder that even amidst the clamor of battle, the soul's reckoning was inescapable. Outside, Captain Robert Hale approached with measured steps, his face etched with the scars of countless conflicts. He unfurled a tattered map across the table, fingers tracing the jagged lines of contested lands and shattered alliances. "We've lost much," Hale said grimly, "but the fight is not yet over. Your leadership will be the beacon in this darkness, Sir Edmund." Edmund studied the map, the weight of his choices pressing on him. Each line represented not just territory, but lives, hopes, and broken dreams. The path ahead was fraught with peril, yet in the depths of despair, a flicker of determination kindled anew. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in hues of fire and ash, Edmund stood once more upon the battlements. The land he had pledged to protect lay in ruins, yet the stubborn pulse of life persisted beneath the surface. He understood now the true price of survival, a cost paid in broken oaths and shattered loyalties, but also in the fierce, unyielding will to endure. "We carry the ashes of the crown," he whispered to the wind, "but from these ashes we shall rise again." The night was silent, save for the distant howl of wolves and the soft rustle of the wind through scorched fields. Edmund's gaze lingered on the stars, emerging one by one, fragile beacons in the dark. Tomorrow would demand courage anew, and though the wounds of the past would never fully heal, the future beckoned, uncertain, yet alive with possibility. And so, with a heart tempered by regret and resolve, Sir Edmund Mallory prepared to face the dawn. A man remade by the cruel crucible of war, ready to bear the burden of survival and the uncertain legacy it carried. The sky hung low and heavy with the smoke of 1,000 torches, the orange glow faintly illuminating the shattered remnants of the battlefield below. Sir Edmund Mallory stood alone on the crest of a hill, his gaunt silhouette stark against the fading light of dusk. The acrid scent of burnt wood and scorched earth filled the air, mingling with the distant groans of the wounded and the hollow silence of loss. His keen eyes, once bright with the fire of youthful ambition, now held the weight of countless harrowing battles and bitter betrayals. He breathed deeply, the cold air biting into his lungs, and let the stillness settle around him like a shroud. Years of conflict had reduced England to a fractured land. Torn asunder by the relentless wars of the Roses, the crown, once a symbol of unity and justice, lay in ashes scattered by the greed and machinations of men thirsting for power. Edmund's own journey had been a tempest of shifting loyalties and agonizing choices. From an idealistic knight sworn to House Lancaster, he had been forced by circumstance to embrace pragmatism, even betrayal, to protect those he loved and to survive. The cost had been steep, friends lost, honor stained, and a soul scarred beyond repair. The wind whispered through the skeletal trees, carrying with it echoes of past glories and shattered dreams. Edmund's thoughts drifted to Lady Eleanor, his steadfast wife and counsel, whose strength had been his anchor in the darkest storms. Their home, though modest and battered, remained a sanctuary amid the chaos, a fragile bastion of hope, where love endured despite the world's cruelty. Returning from the hill, Edmund found Eleanor waiting by the hearth, her resolute eyes meeting his with a mixture of relief and quiet sorrow. The flickering firelight danced across her elegant features, revealing lines carved by worry and endurance. They spoke little, 4 words felt inadequate to bridge the gulf carved by war, but in their shared silence was a profound understanding. Together they had survived the unthinkable, yet the path ahead remained uncertain. That evening, Brother Matthew came to visit. The aged monk, whose serene countenance belied the turmoil within, offered Edmund counsel by candlelight. His voice, gentle yet unwavering, reminded Edmund of the spiritual cost of their strife and the need for forgiveness, not only from God, but from oneself. The conversation stirred a fragile seed of peace within Edmund's restless heart, a reminder that even in devastation there could be grace. Days passed in a slow rhythm, each one a testament to endurance. Edmund often found himself gazing upon the faded family crest hanging in the great hall, a battered shield emblazoned with the Mallory insignia, its colours dulled and edges worn. It was a symbol of a lineage tested by ambition and survival, emblematic of the fragile legacy now entrusted to him. He understood that rebuilding would require more than sword and strategy. It demanded humility, resilience, and the courage to forge a new path from the ruins. As the sun rose on a cold, quiet morning, Edmund stood once more on the threshold of his home, the weight of the past pressing upon him, yet tempered by a cautious hope. The road ahead was uncertain, marked by the shadows of what had been lost and the promise of what might still be reclaimed. In that moment, amidst the ashes of the crown, Sir Edmund Mallory embraced his transformed self not as a knight defined by glory or ambition, but as a man shaped by survival, love, and the enduring quest for peace. And as the first light of dawn broke through the lingering mist, a whisper of possibility stirred in the air, beckoning him forward into a future yet unwritten. The war was over, but the legacy of its ashes had only just begun. The legacy of ambition and war had left Edmund forever changed. Yet, within the ruins of his former world, he found a quiet strength, a resilience born not of power, but of the hard-won wisdom that true survival demanded sacrifice, reflection, and an unyielding hope for redemption. The crown might lie in ashes, but from those ashes, new beginnings could still be forged.